had a wonderful time this past Saturday. Bobby Fulton came down from Chillicothe, Ohio. And we went to Martin's Barbecue and got a dozen of the smoked wings and the Big Daddy sampler with just everything, and the catfish tacos and strawberry pie. And then he came back to the castle, and we spent a pleasant Saturday afternoon and evening looking through my classic wrestling memorabilia and talking about old wrestling stories. Had a great visit. But as we were talking, we tried to figure out, is the word disdain? Is it disgust? Is it outright contempt? Not just anymore for the guys that do this stuff in the wrestling business. And of course, I'm talking about the comedy and the hand grenades and the dicks and the wrestling panda bears and the whatever the fucking goddamn, or just blatant stupidity of nodding and winking at the audience and letting them in on everything because they already are anyway. I don't know whether it's just to blame those guys or whether sometimes we even just blame the other guys, even the ones with talent who either excuse it because it's their friends doing it or actually just at this point, at this time, don't see anything wrong with it. And I make it understand the fans all going, oh, wrestling is an art and should be expressed in any manner of which, because that's what they hear from these fucking fuckwits that don't have enough talent to get over as real, actual athletes and have to fling people around with their cocks, etc. And they feed their fans who enjoy that kind of thing, because now we're down to basically, in some cases, the people who like that kind of thing, that's the kind of thing those people like. They're spending more money on it than ever before. It's just a smaller number overall because a lot of people don't like to see grown men throw each other around with their dicks or pretend that they're mad at each other with no emotion behind it. So I'm making understand the fans of that being fed that from the talent. But when other wrestlers, even the ones who don't do it, think the horse shit's okay, I want to make a large segment of wrestling fans. I want to make a large segment of modern wrestling fans happy with telling them how limited my appearances will be in the future around modern wrestling. So I know that'll make them happy. But I also want to say that I am just gobsmacked. I am dumbfounded that they can't ever figure out that who's the biggest draw in professional wrestling on a per capita basis these days. Brock Lesnar, because he's the one they believe is real. And who was the one before him? Stone Cold Steve Austin, because he was the one they believed was real. And who was the one before him? Either Hulk Hogan or Ric Flair, because, well, Hogan, you had to fucking stretch, but he had him for a while. And Flair was Flair, and et cetera, et cetera. But you know, the cheetah segment of the Tarzan movie has taken over the fucking cinema. And it's the guys are just okay with it. And maybe, you know, it's just so I started thinking, you know, I have wonderful times at comic conventions where I meet the wrestling fans and the comic fans. I have a wonderful time at Wrestling Legends Fan Fest, where I meet the Charlotte Fan Fest, which unfortunately was canceled last year. Perfect example. But people who actually appreciated wrestling instead of sports entertainment and etc. Never have a bad interaction with a wrestling fan really in public. Imagine that, me. Since it went full circle, I had more lawsuits in 1 year than anybody in the fucking business to never have a bad interaction with a fan of wrestling. Because I assume people don't like me, just don't come up to me most of the time. But any time that I am on an event involving actual matches, it's just, do you know how many events I've appeared on in 2017 so far, in counting Fan Fests and Legends Gathering and wrestling matches?
I don't actually. 10?
11.
Okay, close.
Do you know how many of them have been good and how many of them have in some way or another sucked?
You know, I only remember the suck ones from the stories. I don't remember the good ones. Really,
we're at 6 and 5 with an asterisk on the 6. 50%. I'm going to run this down for you real quick. Now, the good stuff, Let's do more of the good stuff and less of the bad stuff. First, the good stuff, obviously, the WWE Hall of Fame ceremony and the whole process around it was very professional, very well done. Everybody had a great time. Not a crossword was passed with anyone. Very professional, as you would think and hope that it would be. I did a great wrestling event for Bobby Fulton's World Classic Professional Big Time Wrestling organization in Circleville, Ohio in April. And it was a great old fashioned wrestling show and they had drew a good crowd, but try to find something to eat in Circleville, Ohio after 11 o'clock at night, even on a Saturday. And then they closed the fucking interstate on me on the way back home. So I had to drive through the fucking Ohio cornfields like Dorothy trying to find fucking Kansas again. So that had an asterisk, right? I had a good time at the show, but it was hell getting back. The Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame, the event that Randy Hales put on at Jerry Lawler's Bar and Grill on Beale was it was basically, Jerry Lawler, Bill Dundee, myself, a number of Memphis personalities, and it was a wonderful event. There was no matches involved. Madison, West Virginia, for Gary Damron, All-Star Wrestling. He's got great people, runs a great show. Ken and Lisa Cantrell were there. I got a chance to cross off the bucket list and grapple, so to speak, with the Universal Heartthrob. But at the same time, we have not spoken to each other since then, except for Dinner with the King, except through legal representation. But that was a nice event. Legends of the Ring in New Jersey, great fan fest. Do the kayfabe commentary shoot up there. Those are fine folks. They put together a good show. The hotel sucks, but if you don't have to stay there. And Jackson, Tennessee, Burt Prentice had him on the show. Wonderful, wonderful wrestling card. Got to manage the Rock and Roll Express. In 9 months, that's the positive interaction really I've had with wrestling in general. Now, remember the bad ones. Remember Murfreesboro? When an unnamed friend of mine said, I will pay you to come down and shoot some stuff for my television for a show that he ended up not running, but he paid me for, but I didn't want to work for the guy running the show, but he talked me into it. And that's when the ring caved in the second match. And at 10 o'clock at night, I'm supposed to call the last two matches, and the third match has not happened yet. And I went back to my hotel and told him to retain my money in his anal cavity. And then Dr. Tom Pritchard left an hour later when his match hadn't even got on yet. And these are very nice people, and I have nothing bad to say about Kenny McIntosh and James Dixon, who were working with them at the time, the What Culture Pro Wrestling show. But the one I did in Orlando, where I get commentary with Matt Stryker was fun, but I had to suffer the presence of the half-baked brown and serve roll covered in pubic hair, and it was not. There were some good talents on it. Drew Galloway was one who immediately went over and debuted for the WWF, but it was not a show I will look at from a standpoint of all-time classics. There was Parkersburg, West Virginia, where not only was the building 125 degrees, and I sat there for 7 hours, but when I was calling the Royal Rumble main event style match, the ring guy, who was just alerted to the fact that he had gotten dressed when he was supposed to be in the match, walked over and set his cell phone and his car keys down on the table, walked to the ring, got into the battle royal, did a spot with another fat fuck, got knocked out, and came back over and put his flip-flops back on and picked his stuff up. And I said, thanks for going, you unprofessional fat fuck. Right before the finish came, I threw the microphone down and fucking took off. There was the Global Force Wrestling, which once again was a positive experience for everyone. For a week, everyone coexisted in love and peace and harmony. And then suddenly I get home and people are gone and I'm reading shit on the internet and blah, blah, blah. So that was my lesson there. And then, of course, the Cobo Fiasco. So I'm thinking I've got almost a 50-50 average with shows involving wrestling, and generally the ones that are wonderful involve the fans and the legends, as they say, who actually kind of have a half of a little bit of respect left for our industry. And The bad ones are generally when there are matches involved or people involved that have gotten in this business over the last 10 years or so in either a promoting or in-ring capacity or whatever the fuck, or just something involving modernity. And think about that. And once again, these are, I'm not trying to say this in this way, but I have to be honest. These are the bookings that I take. I never ask for any. And I get emails, and some of you, I will still be replying to you when I get to my emails. But I get emails asking me, can you do this or can you do that on such and such a date? Or what is your rate? And I say no, because it's too far. Or there's nobody else there that I want. There's the Rock and Roll Express is not on the cards. I don't want to manage just to manage because I'm old and broke down. I don't want to make the trip for the amount of money that one would have to pay me to make that fucking trip, whatever the case may be. It's not a friend of mine or somebody that I know that's running it. And I don't look for shit. There's all kinds of excuses. But out of the ones that I actually take that involve one or more, there's somebody I want to work with, or it's an old friend or somebody recommends it, I'm still half and half.
Which one was the asterisk?
The asterisk was Bobby Fulton's show. I loved the show, but once again, try to find something to eat and then fucking have to drive through goddamn Doomfuck, Ohio on a Sunday morning.
Is there anyone in wrestling that says their hometown as often as Bobby Fulton does?
No. And also... Here's the thing. This was a classic Lance Russellism also. Because Lexington, Kentucky is on 75, which runs up to Cincinnati and et cetera. It's right down below Ohio. So Bobby Fulton got the biggest kick out of it, and we repeated it for years and years. When Lance Russell introduced him as ring announcer one night in Rupp Arena in Lexington, Kentucky, he said, and in this corner from not too far north of here in Chillicothe, Ohio, Bobby Fulton. And from then on, Chillicothe became not too far north of anywhere.